Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. This is our September home-based meetup for PowerSchool. Down at the bottom, you can grab that link. Somebody's probably dropped it in the chat already. That is the bit.ly link for our opening slides. And then in this presentation, you'll have access to the other slides for the project or products. So a quick overview. Of course, here's a list of all of the home-based products. We've got most of the product managers on this call today. And thank you all for attending, but these are the products that we cover. The home-based meetup's purpose is to foster positive, productive, field-based relationships with our stakeholders, communicate product-specific information to LEA and charter personnel, elicit feedback from the field, to inform state-level decision makers, provide collaborative time, problem-solving, and networking, and to provide coordination between our different DPI-based groups that serve end users of home-based products. Excuse me. So here's a list of, here's our meetup schedule for this week. Of course, we've already had the NESIS and SchoolNet sessions. Today, we're kicking off the PowerSchool. Thursday, we'll have our Canvas session, and Friday, Go Open NC. And if you want to attend the next two, Canvas or Go Open NC, there's the links to register. All right, so our home-based meetup schedule for 2021-2022, all of them are virtual this year. Our next one will be, our next sessions will be the week of November 15th. You guys will meet with me and our team on the 17th, November 17th, so make plans to attend. Here is a link to the presentations. You'll notice that we still have the next two to post, but you'll be able to come back to this slide if you want to access those links. All right, so you guys, most of you know that Pam Batchelor left us recently. She took a new position. And so we're glad that on October 4th, Corey McNeil will be joining our team. He will be the product manager over Canvas and Go Open NC. Certainly glad to have him on board. Cami, I don't know if you took the time during your session. I don't know if do we want to take the 5 minutes now to have them complete this survey, or do we want to drop that in the chat?
We dropped it in the chat so they could do it if they wanted to, but I'll leave that up to you, Justin.
Yeah, let's drop that in the chat. And it doesn't take long, guys. If you've got about 5 minutes to fill out this home-based survey for us, it helps us determine the roadmap for the future of home-based. So if you would, sometime when you have time, thank you, John, complete that survey. And of course, we're all over social media. Here is a link, or here's a page of all of our hashtags and @ symbols, and at the bottom there is our URL to the YouTube channel. So be sure to follow us. This is our team. Dr. Dietrich couldn't be with us. He may join later during the presentation, but here's the home-based team, along with links to all of our email addresses if you need to contact us. And at the end, you'll have another opportunity to grab this link for the feedback, but I do want to remind you, if you have to drop early, please provide the feedback because it helps us plan for our next sessions. All right, there at the bottom is our bit.ly for the specific PowerSchool slides that we're going to go over today. I'm going to keep rolling because somebody will drop that in the chat if they haven't already. All right, our agenda looks short, but it's really not. We've got a lot to go over. I want to give you guys the opportunity to introduce yourselves if you're new. We're going to do that in a Padlet, only because I know usually this time of year when we're on the road, we try to do that face-to-face. And since we can't be on the road, I still would like to have the opportunity to hear from the new coordinators or the position changes that have taken place if you've moved to a different district. Then we're going to go over the SIS updates, which will take most of the time slot. and then briefly discuss the upgrade schedule and our SIS conference. All right, so before we start our Padlet activity, what I'd like to do is have everybody that's present, either from the home-based team or the guests that we have, I'd like for you to unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves to the group, just so the field has the opportunity to hear from us and know who we are and what we do. So, of course, I'm Justin Connor. I'm the PowerSchool product manager at DPI for the Division of Digital Teaching and Learning. And Rob's not here, so Russell, if y'all go on down the line, please.
And I'm Russell Dixon, and I'm responsible for working with upgrades and other items that I'm asked to work with.
And I am Tessa High. I'm a professional learning specialist on the home-based team with a focus on PowerSchool SIS, backing just enough.
And I'm John Mars on the home-based team, SchoolNet product manager, and also a professional learning specialist for all home-based applications.
Good morning, this is Yolanda Wilson, and I think most of you probably know me through the SIS. I am the communications person for Homebase, and if you're interested in receiving the SIS and you're not receiving it, contact me.
And hello, good morning. This is Cammie Nairn. I am the product manager for the teacher evaluation NESIS system. I'm glad to be here with you guys today. Justin, can you unmute Audrey?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Audrey Long, and I'm product manager for learning.com. Glad to be here today. Have a good one.
Good morning. I'm Brandon Young. I'm the project and course code manager, and I work with the home-based team.
All right, and then we'll go over to our presenters and guests that we have with us.
Hello, I'm Mark Hausner, and I'm with the Enterprise Program Data Supervisor, and I interface with PowerSchool with Title I, Title III, and some of the other customizations we have.
I'm Lori Ivy. I am with the Enterprise Data Reporting team. I am the Student Staff and Facility Data Supervisor, and I am in the database all day long, pulling the data for legislative reports, federal reports, and internal customers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Powell-Moman. I'm also in the Enterprise Data and Reporting Division. I am the Enterprise Data and Analytics Supervisor. I am also the Dropout ALP and Discipline Data Coordinator at the state level.
Well, thanks, Eric or Tracy or on Tanya.
Okay, so good morning. My name is Tanya Parrish. I am the section chief for Read to Achieve, and I am in the Office of Early Learning. So it's a pleasure to be with you today.
And we've got one more that I didn't get added to the list in time because I wasn't sure if he could attend, but Lorenzo, can you introduce yourself?
I can. Lorenzo Lopez, custom developer for PowerSchool.
All right, so I will share before we move on that not all of these folks will be able to attend the full 2-hour session. They've got other things going on. They'll have to drop early, but if you have questions for any of them, feel free to use the Q&A and we'll pass it along later. All right, so first thing I want to do, I want everybody to click on the link there at the top of this slide. And regardless of if you're a new coordinator or you've been in your position for years, I do want us to just share some items. If you're new, please introduce yourself, where you're at. If you're not new, just share some good news with us. And while we're doing this activity, Emily Jones, I believe, have we unmuted Emily? I've asked Emily to join just because she's over the Google group that everybody has asked about. They're wanting information about joining, so I wanted you to kind of go over that since you manage that.
No problem. Hey, I see everybody saying hello. Hi, guys. Glad to see you all again. Yes, I think we've got everyone just about signed up that I've gotten emails for. And you saw on the slide, Justin put the new email address. Just email me if you need access to that Google group. Everyone is welcome. Very helpful group, and they are absolutely great people to work with. I'm blessed to have retired working with them and now being back working with them again. So I am just truly so very lucky. And if anybody wants to put it in the chat, we can get it done today as well. I see Jackie's already put hers in, so great. If there's anyone online that has not actually been added to the Google groups and they'd like to be added, just let me know.
Thank you, Emily. And it looks like I've got some settings wrong. Some folks are popping up as anonymous, and then I'm seeing some names. So if you are new, please include your name in the description. And Yolanda, would you like to touch on, if they're new, how to get added to all the right listservs?
Sure. If you're new and you'd like to receive our communications that we send out, you can just send me an email. What I will do is put my email address in the chat here, and you can just send it to me, or you can send it to home base. But I'll put my email address in first. This should allow you to get our SIS bulletin. And if you're interested in any other bulletins, you can also let me know and I'll add you to those as well. I've also entered a link in the chat for those who are new, since we do have a lot of new people. Just in case I don't have you as the coordinator, would you please go to that link that I just added in the chat, and you can check to see by clicking on district leads if you are a district coordinator, or if you're a charter lead, a charter coordinator, click on charter leads to see if I have the correct information for your school. And if I do not, you can also email me and let me know.
And before I move on, one more thing I want to remind you of. If you are new to your position, especially if you are a PowerSchool coordinator for your district, be sure to update the EOI contacts page at the LEA level so that we have the correct contacts for your district. And the same is also true if you're a technology coordinator for your district. There's a good chance that your tech coordinator was the backup to the EOI person. So you might want to check that page and just make sure that the contact information is correct. All right, I'm going to move on. So here are the SIS updates that we're going to go over today, not necessarily in this order, because like I said, we've got some folks on the line that need to drop early. So we've kind of rearranged this, but we're going to talk about GPAA, legislative class size, CFS report, discipline dropout, the home language survey, information that's went out recently, statewide student search update, EDI, AMC, Read to Achieve, and FERPA. All right, so I'm going to start with common follow-up. This one's probably the most urgent right now of all of the reports out there, because we've got to get this in by tomorrow, close of business. Communications have went out, but it is important that you correct all of your warnings and fatal errors that are listed on that CFS exceptions report before you approve CFS. This is required for all high schools or all schools that contain grade levels of 9 through 13. You can ignore any blank diploma types for non-senior students, and then only graduates are required to have a diploma type populated. I have received a few emails saying you have some graduates missing who are in grade level -9. And I have confirmed this morning that we know that those will not be reported. So go ahead and approve as it is. Lori, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing is the schools that have the invalid graduation data. Did we get in touch with everyone on that? With the errors that we were seeing?
Is that the list you sent yesterday?
Yes.
I don't think I've gotten with all of them. Yeah, so there's a chance I will be reaching out to a few of you later today.
We have a lot
And
of
that was
people
only a
saying that
handful.
we have a lot of people saying that they have graduates that are missing that are not -9. And that many of them say they have tickets in for missing seniors other than -9.
Is that recent? Have you checked recently? Because we had PowerSchool run it for the whole state again. So if you've got old tickets, there's a chance that it may be corrected by now.
And your ticket just hasn't been updated.
Yeah, Cheryl has a comment in there that she reported the issue. Where most of the missing students that has been corrected, and PowerSchool reran all the reports. So those students should be showing now. If I could get a handful of student numbers for the ones that are still missing. Then I could do some research.
So you just want some examples
Yeah,
sent over? Okay.
please.
And I just want to remind you guys, you can use the chat if you just have something to say, but if you have a question, please use the Q&A to submit your questions.
So if somebody wants to send me either case numbers that you've already submitted that contain student numbers, or to send an email over with the information that Lori needs, I'll pass that along to her.
Okay, so Francine said that she doesn't have an old ticket and she attached student numbers. So if someone could get Francine's ticket and get those student numbers to me, I would appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is FERPA. This is also coming up pretty quick, which is why I put it at the top. So we will be pulling all this very soon. So it's important that all of the FERPA fields are populated by October 1st. And then we've had questions in the past about which field names this information is kept in. And so Lori provided me with this yesterday. Question 1, 2, and 3, 4 are listed there. Lori, something came up this morning, and we've been back and forth about this, and you may not have an answer, and if not, we'll take it back. But what did Carl end up wanting as far as whether or not they can mass populate the fields? Do we prefer to see the null fields and assume those are yeses? Or do we want the districts to make sure every single field's populated even if they don't have the responses?
I will have to get back to you. I do know that right now I'm pulling for the military poll that's going to come up next week. If there is a null in there, I'm treating that as yes, they released the information.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on FERPA? If no questions, I'm going to move on. All right, so Read to Achieve was an item that we've had some questions on in the Google group, and I've had personal text messages or emails asking for more clarity on Read to Achieve. So I've asked Tanya to join and kind of go over the next few slides and make sure you guys have a chance to ask any questions you have. So,
Thank
Tanya?
you. Yep. Thank you so much, Justin. So just to kind of briefly, just kind of go over just a few things that Justin had asked about. I know we've been getting questions. Lori has been phenomenal with helping us. So Lori, I just want to give you a shout out and thank you for everything you do. But the Read and Retain label should have been entered in PowerSchool after reading camp. So that we can, make sure we get all of our reports and everything done to ensure that that Read and Retain code is in PowerSchool. The test coordinator should provide the data manager with a list of any students who did not attain Read to Achieve proficiency during 3rd grade and by the end of reading camp. So then that record needs to reflect that the student has a Read and Retain code within PowerSchool. The Read and Retain code is given if a student does not demonstrate 3rd grade reading proficiency by the end of reading camp. So they did not demonstrate it during 3rd grade. They were invited to camp. At the end of camp, they still did not demonstrate reading proficiency. At that time, the test coordinator and the data managers needs to ensure that the code is put in within PowerSchool. 3rd grade students that meet mid-year Read to Achieve requirements should have the Read and Retain label removed within PowerSchool. They continue to be provided the instructional support, but that Read and Retain label is removed. And I have to give a shout out to the home base team because they have done a great job in providing a step-by-step guide on how to complete this process. And so I did put the link there on that slide for you. So thank you to the home base team for that as well. So the next slide. Yep. So our Read and Retain students, those students that have the Read and Retain label within PowerSchool, they do have access to the DIBELS 8. These students are assessed on all of the subtests required for 3rd grade. So I know some of the questions that we've been getting is, the student is a 4th grade student, has the Read and Retain label, are they supposed to be taking the 3rd grade DIBELS 8? And the answer to that is yes, because they're still trying to demonstrate 3rd grade reading proficiency. While they are in that transitional year, again, these are students with the Read and Retain label within PowerSchool. If a Read and Retain student demonstrates 3rd grade reading proficiency, he or she has demonstrated that RTA proficiency and they are promoted to grade 4. So at that time, that Read and Retain label is removed. So anytime they demonstrate proficiency, the Read and Retain label is removed. The Read and Retain students who demonstrated 3rd grade reading proficiency, they continue to have access to the DIBELS 8. They continue to be assessed and monitored because we want to accelerate their growth and provide them the individualized support that they need. Something that is new this year, probably, I know we've been getting questions about it, a Read and Retain label should be removed at the end of the 3-4 transition or 3-4 accelerated school year when a decision is made to retain this student in grade 4 or promote to grade 5. So just kind of keep in mind that at the end of that 3-4 transition year, that Read and Retain label will be removed once a decision has been made. Any student who has already, so think about last year, couple years past, I know we've gotten questions from students in middle school asking, teachers, data managers in middle school asking, what do we do with these students with read and retain labels? Any student who has already been promoted to grade 5 or above should no longer have the read and retain label within PowerSchool, and that is new this year. So kind of keep that in mind. We will be sending this information out on Friday in a memo to all of our Retreat Chief contacts and CAOs. And so the next.
We do have a few questions.
Okay.
You want to address those before moving on? For RTA, do we have to wait for RTA data to be archived before removing the RTA label?
And I may need Lori to help with some of these questions logistically. So Lori, do you know the answer to that? As far as from your end?
In the past, we had asked them not to remove the label until we had archived the data, but we may need to go back to Amy and find out exactly what we need to be doing this year, since there's been a lot of confusion.
Yeah. And so please know, again, the information I just shared with you, hot off the press. We got that yesterday, last night, literally, approved by leadership. So we do, our team and Lori will be meeting just to kind of go through logistical things. That information will be going out in our memo on Friday. So as Lori just said, we will keep you informed. Justin, I can definitely share all this updated information with you so that you can push out to all of the contacts and everything so that we can keep you updated. So as far as the question about archiving or not, let us check on that and then we'll get that information to you.
Okay, and going along with that, is there a date when the RTA label will be pulled from PowerSchool? When that data is pulled?
Lori, do we have a specific date that it is being pulled, that you're pulling it?
The last I heard was November 15th.
Yes, that's what I was thinking was the middle of, so because mid-year promotion has to be done by November 1st, the RTA test, and so we had determined that November 15th we will be pulling that data. Laura's going to pull it for us.
And is that date the same for when it'll be archived? Is it pulled and archived then?
As far as archived, I will need to check with the team just to make sure. And we can share that information with you, but I'm thinking maybe, probably. Lori, thoughts?
In the past, it has been the same date.
Okay. So I would say yes, but we can definitely confirm that.
We'll definitely add that to our FAQ list.
Yes, please do, Justin. Any of these that I'm not able to give an answer to, if you'll send them to me, I will make sure I get an answer by this week.
Okay.
All right. And is it true that only one person at a school can have the role of RTA admin and only 2 people at the district level may have RTA admin?
So new communication has gone out because we had so many doing that. So yes, that is our suggestion because yes, but we had it was like everybody wanted the admin. If there's a special situation or something, please contact me and we can discuss, but that has been the recommendation. And I will put my email in the chat just so that everyone can have it.
All right. Is there a search that we can use to find the student that may still have the reading retained label in grade 5 or higher?
And Lori, that would be for you.
Tessa, I may need your help. Can they search on the re-enrollments? Because it's put on their promotion status. Can they search on that within PowerSchool?
So it's, yeah, it would be on the re-enrollment tables and that would have to be in DDE, but I was thinking, do we have RTA SQL reports? I can't remember
We
what those
do,
were.
but I don't know if there's, and I guess they could use this one. There is a student retained with, and then are read in parentheses. It's not under a folder. They can run that one and then sort on the grade level. And that should give them the students that they need.
And so it's students with retained reading code, and it says RRED. I'll put that in the chat. The SQL report that Lori is referring to. And that's towards the bottom of the list. It's not under a folder. But there is also RTA, other RTA SQL reports that can be used, not necessarily for this specific one, but for searching for RTA students.
Great. So the answer to that is yes, you can pull those students using the RTA SQL report, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
And that
the
can be
student with
exported out if
retained
they,
reading code.
yeah, that can
Okay.
be exported out if they need to filter in Excel to get other grade levels.
Okay. Awesome.
And if we remove the label, is there historical documentation that will be available to pull that information, or will we need to keep records before we remove the label?
Lori, are they able to historically go back once it's been removed?
They can't, there's some of the other reports that Tessa was talking about looks at the table that we archive the data in.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it just depends on what they're wanting.
Okay. So I guess for whoever asks, those questions or anybody, if you are wanting to look up specifics, Lori, should they contact you, or who would be the contact person for that? As far as just learning what report to pull or whatever information they're needing.
I would just send that to the home base group email.
Okay,
And then
great.
we can get answers and respond back.
Okay, awesome. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few. I'm going through and making sure they're not duplicates.
Okay.
I have seen in the Google forum that some coordinators have already been removing the label once students pass. Do they need to add it back?
Lori, I'm going to let you take that one.
I think that goes back to where we need to get with Amy, since there's been so much confusion on this one,
Okay.
to find out if she needs it archived or not.
Okay. So Justin, if you'll make sure that one is one of the questions that you send me, I will get an answer this week. Again, any questions that Lori or I are not able to answer right now, if you'll just send them my way, I will ensure that you have an answer this week.
And Tanya, it may be that you and me, Lori, maybe we get together and put out a little one-pager as a standalone message once we get all the answers.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Absolutely. Anything we can do to support. Are there any other questions?
Yes. Why weren't PowerSchool coordinators notified beforehand of required PowerSchool settings for students to show up correctly in Amplify?
Are you specifically talking about rostering or the students with Amplify specifically?
Carrie, if you want to drop some clarification in the chat, maybe we could get that question answered for you.
And I know there was a document that some documentation that we put together. Tessa helped me with some of it, and then there was some that I had done, and that was given to Amplify to pass out, detailing what needed to be in place. It was like a troubleshooting guide.
Yep. And I know I've shared that with, people, the document that y'all made. It was wonderful. So I'm not quite sure. I would need to know more about that question, and so I could check to see who received the information and who did not. Are there any other questions?
It was told to our district that the admin at the school should be the data manager to be able to submit help tickets. Is that true? If so, will training be provided to help with entering help desk tickets? Brian, I think we need clarification on what you mean by help desk tickets. Are we referring to Amplify? Are you referring to PowerSchool support tickets? Are you referring to NCDPI ServiceNow tickets? What kind of help desk tickets are you asking about?
And also, who told you that? I'm just curious, did that come from Amplify or was it DPI? So I guess, again, it would kind of depend on which help desk ticket you're referring to. But districts ultimately can determine who they feel needs the admin access based on their jobs and what they do, and if they're the people who need that access and would be able to support their districts with that access. So if that is the data manager, then great. But if it's not the data manager and it's someone else, then that's the district's decision to determine who. It's just that we were asking that it not be given to 50 people in one district or school.
The change that grade 5 or higher should not have retained label is new. Do we need to look for the label that for students that may be in middle school now and remove from those also?
So that's a question that we're honestly, I'm thinking, Lori, and you would know better, I think, probably, or Justin. Once they're in middle school, would the elementary teacher, the 5th grade teacher, or whoever, would they be the ones that would still go in, or not the teacher, the data managers, and remove those, or would it be for the middle school at that point to remove those? What is typically the process? And I know this particular is new, so who would be the person that would remove that? And that may be something we have to have some further discussion on too. Again, that information I got last night, so it's brand new. Y'all got it hot off the press.
So the elementary school data manager may not have access to the student anymore if they are now in middle school.
Right.
So those 2 data managers would need to communicate if the student is in middle school and needs to be removed.
Okay, great. And we will make sure we outline all of that in our communication that's going to go out this Friday. So Lori, I may be touching base with you so that I'll share with you my thoughts so I can get some feedback before I send that out.
Lori just messaged me. She lost connection.
Oh, okay.
She'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tessa.
So if we have high school students showing on the RRED report, we need to go back and remove those codes?
Absolutely. Yep.
And Carrie replied yes for rostering. She said, why weren't PowerSchool coordinators notified beforehand of required PowerSchool settings for students to show up correctly and Amplify? And she was referring to rostering.
Okay. So first of all, I apologize that y'all did not get it beforehand. We, like Lori said, lots of new changes this year, new things going on, new vendor. So we've been working diligently trying to ensure that everybody is kept updated. So I apologize that you did not get that information prior to. We shared it just as soon as it was available to us. And, Justin, maybe if we need to talk more about just how can we make sure that from the RTA aspect that we're communicating clear with your coordinators, please let us know so that because we want to keep y'all informed and we want to give you the heads ups that you need. So please know that.
Yeah, and I'll add that this portion came quick.
It did. It really did, and we try to ensure that everybody got the information. But our apologies if we missed someone. But definitely we'll put that on our radar so that in the future you are notified and kept in the know.
Okay, and was the data archived last year? SQL report that shows that seems to indicate it was not.
That would have to be a Lori question. I would think so.
It was, but it was archived the beginning of this calendar year. Because of the turnover that we had, it got missed. I want to say it was like January or February when we did the archiving.
Okay.
Okay. And someone has an FYI, which it says accountability has to submit a report for those students that haven't met the RTA requirements. So NCDPI has this data. PowerSchool just shows the label for tracking purposes after grade 3 and tag the students in the Amplify program.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. It takes a village. It takes all of us.
Yeah.
Any
So
other?
it says someone's asking, I think this is a clarification on the 5th grade question. We remove the reading retained label from a 3rd grade year if the student is in 5th grade or higher?
Yes. After the 3-4 transition year, and they are moved to the 5th grade, or they are beyond 5th grade and they still have that read and retain label, it can be removed within PowerSchool. 5th grade and above.
What's the purpose of removing that label for middle or high school students now?
So after discussing with leadership and everything, I'm going to turn it around like, what is the purpose of having it on there in middle and high school when no additional support or anything is given? It's kind of like you're leaving a label on a child to follow them for the rest of their, education career, but legislatively or, there's no other supports or anything given for the student. So there's just been a lot of discussion about why is it still there?
Okay, and there's actually a good follow-up to that. It says, if removing the RTA label is to be removed from 5th grade and up, then can that be part of what DPI clears at EOI? I think that would be a Justin and Lori question.
That's something we could take back.
Yeah, we can write a script. We need approval on it, Justin.
Yeah, that's something we could definitely talk to Amy about, Lori, and Justin.
Yeah, and since you just found this out last night, let's take that back. That's a good point.
Yeah, I definitely think we can take that back. So, yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. The retention reading assignment to promotion status field. Applying this or is not dependent on student participating in reading camp. Applying it is or is not dependent on student participation in reading camp.
So are we talking, so you're talking, I want to make sure I understand. So are you asking if the read and retain label is applied whether or not they attend reading camp?
Is it or is it not dependent on if they attend reading camp?
So it is not. So in other words, if a student at the end of 3rd grade did not demonstrate proficiency, those students are invited to reading camp. However, it's parent choice. So students are not required to go to reading camp. They are required to be invited. So if a student, the parent chose not to send the student to reading camp, then that child still did not demonstrate proficiency. So they would have the read and retain label on them. If they do go to reading camp, but during reading camp, they demonstrate proficiency, then they would not have the read and retain label put on them because they demonstrated proficiency during reading camp. But if at the end of reading camp they still did not demonstrate proficiency, then they would have the read and retain label put on them.
Okay, so we do still have some questions coming in, but we do probably need to move on. So if you guys have more questions that have not been answered, please continue to put them in the Q&A, and we will put them in our FAQ when we get answers to them.
Absolutely. Just send them my way today as soon as you get them, and I'll get answers to all of them. And my last slide is just to kind of let you know that that the state provides Amplified Dibbles 8 assessment for all K-3 students and for read and retain students in a transition or accelerated 4th grade classroom. The state does not provide Dibbles 8 for other 4th and 5th grade students. So we've had a lot of questions because some districts choose to purchase Dibbles 8 for their 4th and 5th grade students, and they can do that, but it's not required, and the state does not pay that legislatively. We pay for K-3 and read and retain. So if a district has a contract with Amplify for 4th and 5th grade, please contact Amplify, your Amplify district representative, directly for support with rostering and assessments. So every district has an Amplify district representative. You can contact them. And I have put the email and the number to Amplify support there for you. So the Amplify icon will show up in NC Ed Cloud accounts for all 4th graders, but only those 4th graders that are rostered in Amplify will be able to access the M-Class assessment. All other 4th graders that attempt to assess through the Amplify icon will receive an error message and will not be able to assess. Okay, so just kind of keep in mind if you're getting questions about Dibbles 8 and rostering, only if they're read and retained are we at DPI doing that. If they are a 4th and 5th grade, they need to contact their district representative and Amplify to help get support for rostering and assessing those students that are not considered read to achieve students. And now that the we've gotten our read and retain students loaded into PowerSchool for this current year, we have sent out a memo letting districts know that the new benchmark window for reading retained students opened up on September the 22nd, and it goes through October the 15th. So those read and retain students are currently being assessed with Dibbles 8 assessments. And a read and retain student must get a 725 Lexile score to meet the legislative requirements of demonstrating reading proficiency. And then again, just as a reminder, once that student has met the 725 Lexile proficiency score, then they can notify the PowerSchool contact to remove the read and retain label. And that is all I had for you today. Please continue to send the questions in. I will get those answered. I did put my email in there as well, and know that we are here to support you. And we thank you for everything that you do to support the districts. So Justin, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining. All right. So we'll take any other RTA questions back, and I'll work with Tanya and Lori to put together a communication to get out to you guys. So we've got an hour left and a lot to cover. We may end up going over just a little, but the next few slides aren't new items, so we'll go ahead and cover those before we turn it over to Amy. All right, Tessa.
All right, GPAA has been implemented, as I'm sure most of you already know. It was implemented to follow the North Carolina SBE grading policy for all public high school credit courses. This includes LEAs and charters who have high school students or middle school students taking high school credit courses. And your NC 10-point grade scale, I believe we pulled a report and all of these are corrected. But your NC 10-point grade scale, the name of it must be NC 10-point scale as shown on the screen right there in quotations. It has to be that exactly in order for GPAA to work, because it is pulling from your local grade scale. And we are actually working on a document for the proper setup of your NC 10-point grade scale, just to ensure that everyone has it correctly set up so that your calculations work properly. So that, as I'm sure you guys know, probably has to go through a lot of approval before we can make it public, but we are working on it. The special codes are working now. They are hard coded based on the SBE policy for high school grade usage. So you can only use certain special codes to add a grade, to manually add a grade for a high school credit course. And those codes are listed in the SBE policy. I think it's the grad 009 policy. They are listed in there, and that is what it's based off of. There is a TR code that you can use in the credit type field, which will unlock all of the fields for entry and update. So if you, and this is only to be used for transfer grades, so it's for non-public school and out-of-state transfer grades. You can enter that TR code to enter the student's grading as necessary. We do have the GPAA in production and it is functioning properly, but we do have a few updates that we are working on making that should be out soon, where we did find the added value and credit hours were not correctly pulling. I think we had them pulling from the local, so we're making some updates so it'll pull from the enterprise controller, and that will also give us more control. So if you guys put in a ticket that the added value or the credit hours are incorrect on a course when you're entering the grade, we can quickly fix that in the enterprise controller. And we don't have to wait for code to be updated or new version fixes to come out. And then at the bottom, we do have the PSQRD for adding historical grades. This is the new QRD, which has all of the updates with the GPAA functionality in it. And it does have the grad 009 policy and any other policies that were used to make these updates, to base these updates off of. So you can reference those policies as well. And it also does mention about what your 10-point grade scale needs to be labeled. And then we also have the 21-22 GPA and grade scale automation communication that went out from the State Board of Education regarding this update. And if you have any policy questions regarding why you can or can't do something, or how this was implemented or why it was implemented, you can actually reach out to Brandon Young. He is with us today, so if you do have some policy questions, he may be able to answer them, but he might have to take them back. And his email is brandon.young@dpi.nc.gov, and that's also linked down there at the bottom of the page. Do we have any questions?
It seems to be pretty quiet in the Q&A, and we do have a comment from Wendy that about the GPA giving added value to courses that shouldn't. And the field is grayed out even with the TR code, but I believe that should be resolved by the updates we have coming for added value and credit hours.
Yes, correct. We actually have a meeting after this with Lorenzo to go through some of the updates.
And I'm sorry, I see 2 just came in as well. Is GPA still not working correctly on the multi-entry screen? I think we got that resolved, didn't we, Tessa?
Yeah, that should be resolved.
Perfect.
The only issues you should be seeing now are as mentioned when Wendy said, the added value, and then there might be some issues with the TR code not completely unlocking it. But we did run through those the other day, and Lorenzo seems to have those fixed. So we just have a couple more things we need to run through, and then those should get updated.
Awesome. And do we have a rough estimate of when this next GPAA update will occur for added value?
Soon, possibly this week. It really just depends on if it passes QA or not.
And that's on our working session for today, correct?
That's correct. So if it passes today, it may go into production this evening, provided it is approved.
And let's see. For clarity, are we using a TR code to input community college courses that a student takes? And I believe the answer on that one would be no. They should have course codes for those.
That is correct, John. All that stuff is already in the enterprise controller for the community college courses. And there's an updated community college guidance document on the SIS resources page. I highly recommend you review it if you have time. Mary did an excellent job on that.
Perfect. Let's see. I think we've got one more. Someone says that they have school showing grades in the grade book that appear to be special codes. So if they enter 60 for an assignment, the P shows up from special codes. I think you may want to double check your grading scale setup and possibly open a PowerSchool ticket on that.
Yeah, so your 10-point grade scale should not have any letter characters in it at all. Any of your special codes or letter character grades should be added as in a special code scale that is attached to your 10-point grade scale. Your 10-point grade scale should only have the numbers 1, or actually I guess it's 0 to 100, and that's it. And that's most likely why you're seeing that when you enter a 60, you're seeing the P, or vice versa. It's because you have that P in your actual grade scale.
And that same person is following up that so I think they're saying they have the P in special codes, but it has to have a % attached. I would go ahead and open a ticket just to get that double checked. And then we've got one about the community college courses. We can't put in grades of A through F. These are in the special code scale attached to the 10-point scale. So, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong. I think a community college course, you would be putting in the numeric percentage from the college, wouldn't you?
Well, they give alphabetical, but you change that to numerical. There's a memo that was sent out for guidance on how to put community college courses in PowerSchool. So if they got a 95 in the course, I mean A in the course, they get a 95 in PowerSchool. But there's a memo out on that, and it's in the SIS resources page. So I recommend just going to that. And if you email me, I can send you the memo. If you have any issues finding, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, or if we can find that link, we can drop it in the chat.
I can get it real quick.
Okay.
And just
Thank you,
for
Brandon.
further clarification on that question about the P and the 60, you're actually referring to in the grade book where teachers are entering it, it sounds like. GPAA functionality does not affect how teachers enter the grades in the grade book or how grades are stored. It only affects the manual entry of historical grades on the historical grade page. You should still be following proper protocols and policy, though, for entering grades and storing grades.
And I think the only other thing I see at the moment is just a note from CMS asking if we can notify the field when the next GPA update is approved and slated to go to production, just so they have that heads up. They haven't had notice the other times that GPAA has been pushed. And I believe that is it on this piece.
Okay. Thank you, Tessa and Brandon. All right. Legislative class size. This is a slide from the last meetup. I just wanted to put it out there as a reminder because this report is coming back up. coming back open soon, rather. One item, so over there, I've put a chart there of the average max sizes for this year and moving forward. What I do want to point out is the special program usage. You've got the dual language immersion, the instructional pullout. Those aren't new. We've used those in the past. But the new one this year is the elementary combination class. And I've put in red that it's now in production. Lorenzo, that might be something we need to check on because I pushed that out through the enterprise controller and the field is saying they can't see that special program.
Okay, yeah, we can do that today.
Okay. So the NC elementary combination class is to be used to identify those sections that contain more than one elementary grade level. Now these updates are not in production yet, but they will be in production by the time we run the class size reports. I'll also share that we've had a little problem with the testing process because I've not been able to get my hands on an updated finance file for the month of August. Typically that only takes about 8 to 10 days, but apparently we've had some issues this year around the state to where they were held up in providing that final file. So once I get that, then we can continue testing to verify that everything's working as it should. And I'm expecting it will because this was just a minor change that we've made since the spring collection. So I'm not sure if that means we're going to have problems collecting the finance file again for the month of September, because that report is a snapshot of everything that took place on the last day of September, which would be tomorrow. So wherever the kids are sitting tomorrow and whatever teachers you have working tomorrow will be the ones pulled for this report. So I'm hoping that I can get my hands on that September payroll file somewhere early in the second week of October so that we can have it loaded before the window opens. Again, this is another carryover from last time, but I want to point out that your K-8 report card numbers are being pulled from the fall collection. So we did away with the SAR. So the numbers that will be reported on the school report cards will be the numbers that you see in the K-8 reports in the class size collection. I know in the past, we've not really focused as much on that K-8 report, and we didn't do the best of job communicating that the school report card numbers were coming out of this report. So again, this is only the fall collection. Even though the K-8 report exists in the spring collection, we only pulled the fall K-8 numbers. Lori, do you want to add anything to that?
No.
Okay. So if you see problems with your K-8 totals, it's just as important as the K-3 average reports. So submit PowerSchool cases if you're finding issues or discrepancies. Class size questions? One big thing, I underlined it there. This is including charter schools. So in the past, and I'm going to work with the Office of Charter Schools to make sure that all the charters are aware. In the past, we've told charter schools you do not have to run the legislative class size report. So while you're exempt from the K-3 average and all the other stuff that's part of this collection, we need you to run it. You don't have to approve it, but we need you to at least run the LCS reports so that we can get that K-8 information. So as long as you run it, then it feeds down to the ODS. And we'll be sure to communicate that through the Office of Charters. Now, do we have any questions?
Yes, so we have a few. It looks like first up is, do we know how the calculations will work when a section has that combination class program associated?
Yeah, it will assign all of those students to the majority grade level. So if it's made up of mostly second graders and you've got first, second combo and it's mostly second graders, it'll include those as part of the second grade.
Perfect. And the next two I think I can sort of combine, but the first one was which courses sections do we need to add these special programs to for LCS? And then also, we're new to dual language, so am I to go to sections and do something? So yes, you would be applying these special programs to, I think, any of the class sections that apply. Is that correct, Justin?
That's correct.
Should sections be created for virtual students that contain 1 or 2 students and have the special program pullout label?
Say that again.
I think we might need more detail on that one. But should they create, I guess if they have like 1 or 2 students in a class that are actually virtual, should those be split off into a separate section? I'm thinking that might be a local decision.
Yeah.
But if you want to email us more details on that, we can see if we can give you a better answer. How do we make corrections for classes that should be exceptions for reasons other than the listed special programs?
Give me examples, but I think they may be referring to something that was already coded.
Okay. So Stephen, if you want to shoot us some examples, but that may already be coded in. Okay, here's a good one. Do we still need to update those extended section attributes since the SAR is now gone? We've heard both yes and no.
Yeah, we need to get back. Lori, are you aware who might be still using that extended data?
I am not.
We get that question a lot, so let's take that back and try to find out if anybody's still looking at that.
I believe Rob said that there are other departments that either still use it or are about to be using it for pulling data. That was the last response I received from him.
Okay. We can try to find out who, because I know it would be nice to know.
The fall LCS report, the numbers are as of September 30th?
Correct.
Perfect. Let's see. Do you know when, if they're submitting that affidavit as well, is that affidavit also due on the 30th?
Well, it's not due on the 30th of September, but it's due on whatever date that the window closes in PowerSchool. Yeah, it is. The same day that the report is due is when the affidavits or waivers are due.
Perfect. Let's see. I think we already answered that. Can we remove the LCS from the list for high schools? I believe you can, couldn't they?
No.
No.
No, because yeah, even though the K through 8 or K through 3 average doesn't look at high schools, the huge file, the big report does.
As well as that enhancements
Yeah.
report for all of your arts, PE, language teachers, world language.
Wonderful. All right. Someone saying their fall LCS was already open. They ran and reviewed and approved yesterday. Do they need to run it again, or are they good?
No, that should not be open yet. What's the dates on that?
I'll let you know if they send us in the dates. Let's see. I think we already answered that. The LCS report is pulling ELA sections. Yes, but among others, right? Do we need to add the special programs to homeroom and enrichment classes or just core classes?
For now, core classes, most of you guys know that right now it's pulling only from the ELA. As far as the average report, we're looking for the ELA courses. So it's important that it's at least attached to that one.
Okay. Are there special codes I should be using for K1 DL sections? Again, that would be yes, you would apply the special program to the sections. Oh, and we had examples of that question we had earlier about exceptions that aren't covered by the special programs. So restart schools or schools that are part of an opportunity culture program.
That one I'll have to take back. Well, you may know.
Well, I know that the restart schools are removed when we pull the state report. We get a list of
what
schools from LaShawn.
Yeah.
Okay. We can check on opportunity culture. Someone already has separate sections for their virtual students. Should those sections have the special program pullout label?
No. Let me go back a slide. Hang on. Oh, see, this is new, the virtual options or the virtual sections. Initially, this was put in for those EC pullouts. This was put in to address those. But now that we've got virtual sections popping up across the state with small numbers, let me take that back to leadership. That's a good question. Right now, I would say no. But we've not had this before, so let me check.
Perfect. Another question related to the end of SAR. Do we still need to update staff duties and staff roles on those custom staff screens that we have?
That goes back to the other question. We'll get that from Rob or LaShawn.
All right. Another virtual question. So we have virtual students in K through 5, all assigned to one teacher. Should those sections be labeled as combination classes? And I think we might need to unpack this more, because if we're only, you shouldn't have K through 5 students in the same ELA course code. So I think you may want to review your schedule and just make sure the course codes are correct. And it sounds like you wouldn't need to apply a combo class special program to a homeroom or an activity period or something.
No.
I already handed that one. These special programs go on the section, not on the students, correct?
That's correct.
Let's see. And we have folks saying that the LCS submission window opened on September 17th.
Okay, I'll check on that.
And I think it looks like most of the rest of these we have answered through other questions or verbally as we have gone. Here's one more. We said restart schools are pulled out of class size later. Does that mean they're still included in the district average and only the individual class maximum is exempt?
Lori, do we exclude? That's a good question, because I see what you're talking about with the district level report. Do we pull those numbers even from the district level reports?
We do pull the averages from the district. Is that what you're asking me?
So the district average report, I'm wondering if we need to review that. If you're just excluding the school after we get it. Let me check on that.
Okay. Check on that, and let's see. We've still got a few coming in. Okay, yeah, we got a few more we need to address here. K3 class size, does it apply to music, PE, art, etc.? I think the answer was no, it does not apply to enhancements. Just core ELA, right?
You're talking about the average report?
Yes, K3 class
Yeah.
size.
Yeah, that does not look at anything but ELA.
All right. Okay. Here's an interesting one. We have all of first grade in a first grade ELA section for Virtual Academy. Do we need to put a special program on that, or do we need to just break that section down?
That needs to be broken down by teacher. So put them in sections. We had this problem not last year, but the year before, where folks were scheduling that way just to make it simple, but that needs to be broken down into individual sections tied to the teachers teaching those students.
Right. Can you explain how and when we would use the instructional pullout? So, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be if you have, say, a section and 3 kids within that section get pulled out with another teacher. So those 3 kids are actually in their own section with that other teacher, maybe an EC teacher. In that case, it would be an instructional pullout, that small section of 3 students that have been pulled.
Correct.
Let's see. Same question about dual language. Does it get pulled out of the district average or just the individual? So we can come back to that. I think we'll have to pull that out. And the last one I see, going back to that virtual breakdown question. The issue they have is the teachers assigned are not their teachers and they don't yet have UIDs. So I would say maybe email us that one so that we can take sort of a closer, more individual look.
Yeah, shoot us an email. I'd like to get in and look at the setup. Is that it?
I believe we are good, yes.
Okay. All right, real quick, just an Eddie update to let you guys know. I know we had the issues at the beginning of the year, but we are working with Lorenzo on a way to not have to disable that Eddie feed this year before EOI. So just keep that in mind. We're working on it. And as I get more information and we progress with that project, I'll keep you posted. All right, so Lorenzo or Tessa, I might need your help on this one, but Rob did want me, this statement did go out. So this is not new news, but he did want to include this and let you know that statewide student search was disabled, or yeah, it was removed from the instance when we upgraded, simply because it doesn't truly go out there and search the UID records. Lorenzo, Tessa, feel free to add to that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tessa.
I think what Rob just wanted to clarify that there are other departments like accountability that use this for functions other than what it was initially intended for. So it does work for accountability for what they use it for, and it can be used for that. What we just want to be sure that you're aware of is that when you're using the statewide student search function, it is only searching across the instances of PowerSchool. So it's possible that you may get some inaccurate information in that the student number you're seeing in that search is not a valid student number. Which tends to confuse a lot of people when they're doing enrollments. They don't understand why they can find that student with that student number in the student search, but that number does not exist in UID. And it's because it's only searching within the PowerSchool data. It's not searching within the UID data. But you can still use it, and it's accessible via that link. It's just not a clickable link on the start page anymore.
All right. Whew, Amy. Took us a while to get there, but thanks for hanging in.
No problem. So hey everybody, I'm Amy Powell-Moomin. I'm in the Enterprise Data and Research Division here. And as I said earlier, I do the discipline, ALP, and dropout data reporting. So I'm the data coordinator for that. So dropout actually begins on Friday, or the data collection window opens on Friday. So I kind of wanted to come and just do a quick overview of the dropout data collection. So one thing I wanted to start with though is the definition of what a dropout is, because there is a little bit of confusion, I think. So a dropout is an individual who was enrolled in a school at some time during last year, all right? So the 2021 school year, and they were not enrolled on day 20 of this current year. They did not graduate from a high school or complete a high school or district approved education program, and they did not meet any of the following exclusions. They didn't transfer to another PSU, private school, homeschool, or state district approved education program. They aren't temporarily absent due to a suspension or school approved illness or death. So one of the things though is I also want to say that during this report that is coming up or opening up on the 1st, we're actually reporting on dropouts from last year. So it's going to be the last grade and school that they were enrolled is where they're going to be a dropout of. So just kind of remember that. And also, a lot of times when you hear dropout, you think high school dropouts. That's not the case. We're actually collecting the data from grade 1 through 13 and XG. So you can have a student who's in the 1st grade that is considered a dropout. So I see this when parents want to withdraw their student and homeschool them. Well, if the parent does not actually set up the homeschool and register the homeschool with the Division of Non-Public Education, the student becomes a dropout. And I can actually I'll drop in the chat a link for those of you who are going to potentially search for these students, where you can actually search the Division of Non-Public Education site for registered homeschools. So I'll drop that in the chat in a minute. If you can go on to the next slide. Okay, so when you're preparing your to submit the data, there are a couple things to look at. So there are 3 reports that need to be reviewed or should be reviewed in PowerSchool. There is a potential dropout match report. So this searches for the W-2 records, your early leavers, and they will look for enrollment records elsewhere. So you'll see all of the W-2s in this report, and if they can find enrollment records in any of the other districts, or in your district or any other district, it'll show up there. There's also a completers who failed to return report. So this is looking for no-shows. So they had a W-1, they were expected to have an enrollment record, and they do not. And so one thing that's good, and Justin just mentioned it, if you have students that are on these lists, and you remember, well, the parents said that they were sending them to or moving to another county, and it's not showing up there, but go and check the statewide student search to see if you can find that enrollment record there. Also, another thing to review is actually review the list of designated dropouts. So you have these 2 potential dropout reports, but you have another list that actually shows those who were designated at some point as a verified dropout. So it could be you review these lists and they need to be removed from that report. Okay, so next slide. All right, so to get to them, just really quick, you go to state reports, state reports, state reporting dashboard. There's the dropout data collection, and then you hit review. Next slide. And this takes you to the different reports. You'll have to change the category to drop views, and then these top three are the ones that I just mentioned. So the potential dropout match, completers, and then that final dropout verification listed out. The detail provides like specific student level detail that's a little bit more in depth in the dropout verification. So go to the next one. Okay. So after you've done that, you've gone, or someone has gone and reviewed all of the students that are either potential or have been designated, you'll need to either remove the verified dropout if the student status, if they've left, if you find out they've left the country, they have a long-term suspension, they're enrolled in another school in another state, you find that they're enrolled somewhere else in the state, private school, homeschool, or if they meet the condition of an initial enrollee, you'll need to remove that they're a verified dropout. But the way that you actually designate the ones that you have found do in fact qualify as dropouts, you'll need to go to for current, like for W-2 students, you'll need to go to their current enrollment record. And then for previous, so W-1 students no-shows, you'll have to go to their previous enrollment record. When you pull that up, at the very bottom is a checkbox that says verified dropout. And so you'll need to check that. And then you'll also need to select the dropout reason. So you're going to have to uncheck that if you find that they have been enrolled on the 20th day. And like I said, if they met those exceptions. So go to the next slide. All right, so here, down there, you can see kind of at the bottom is your dropout reason and your verified dropout. So I just pulled that up to show everybody what that looks like. I just want to say, so, with the initial enrollee exception that I was just talking about, what that is it's holding districts harmless. So if you have a new student that comes into your district, never been enrolled in your district at all, so this doesn't apply if they are enrolled in one school and then move to another school. This is never enrolled in your district at all, and they leave within 20 days. You do not have to, that they're considered initial enrollees, they have an exemption, and you do not have to qualify. You do not have to count them as a dropout. And that could be any 20 days, but if they stay longer than 20 days, then it is a dropout. But if they if they drop out or leave within that 20-day window, at any time of the year, you do not have to count them. So just also kind of be aware of that as well. Next page. So last thing is, please press the approve button by November 4th so that it will kick it up to me. I do try to look at it prior, make sure, or on November 4th, because that data goes into the consolidated data report. It goes into federal reports, as well as goes to the General Assembly. So I'm going to stop there because I'm going to move into discipline after this. Does anybody have any questions?
I've got one. That initial enrollee exception, does our reports look at that? Or is that just district?
That's just
do we have
exemption. Say that again, Justin, sorry.
Is there ways to validate that?
What do you mean by validate? Like, is there any, like a push or anything? No. That's when you're just doing your, you're looking at each one of the students. It's just an exception that you can follow for not including them as dropout.
John, are you seeing other dropout?
We do have a handful of dropout questions. So the first one was, what if the student has not met the age requirement on dropout?
Yeah, if they're not counted.
Perfect.
So it has to do, this has to do with the compulsory school attendance.
All right. Are we planning to do a dropout webinar specifically for dropout folks?
Yes. I actually have slides that I can send out as well. I've been updating those and they're ready to go. So I can send those out as well.
Perfect. Do those initial enrollees count against graduation cohort rates?
That's a great question. So that is, I just want to bring this to everybody's attention. So dropout is actually quite on its own than graduation. So we would have to ask the business area that is over graduation. And it's really interesting because, you know, graduation cohort follows the student for a certain amount of time, whereas dropout is literally just looking at that year. So I'm not the best person to answer that question. Email me and I can send it on to somebody that can answer it better. Because they know the business rules around how the whole graduation cohort works. But just think about that. So you can actually have a student be a dropout 4 years in a row. So that would never happen in a cohort, but you can have that in the dropout report. So I'm not answering your question, and send me an email and I will get that answer for you. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. You have to really look at the calculations as two separate things.
Perfect. And we've got some questions about, is there a comprehensive dropout user guide for them? I did send them the QRD that we have from the home base side, but I'm not sure if there's a larger.
Absolutely. I was actually going to link it in there is a website or webpage you can go to on the DPI site that has both discipline and dropout. And just to note, ALP is inside the discipline manual, but I'm going to send that right in the chat now. And so that'll take you to the page. And if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see both the dropout and the discipline.
Perfect. And I think we've got two more here. Someone's saying our cohort department makes schools count initial enrollees against their graduation rate. And I think that's another we'll need to take back to the graduation folks here at DPI.
Yes.
And then someone has an 8th grade student whose mother refuses to send him back to school. Do I just consider him a dropout? And I think depending on his age, that might fall under compulsory school attendance rather than dropout. Is that correct?
Well, no. So my comment on that was just saying that people that meet anybody grade, like once they are required by law to be in school, if they are considered a dropout. So that means 7 years old, 1st grade and on, they would be put into the dropout. So if the parent, if you cannot find any reason to believe that they have a registered homeschool, that they're homeschooling them with a registered school, then yes, most likely they would be considered a dropout. Or a homeschool or any type of virtual school that's approved, I should say.
Perfect. And then we had one more come in about if there's a website where we could search for homeschools, and I know that there is, and I will find that link.
I have it.
Hold on. Perfect. Thank you.
I do have that. All right, so here you go. Here's that link too. All right, so that's me again. Sorry. So discipline. Okay. With what I wanted to just kind of bring to everybody's attention is instead of all discipline data is required to be submitted by June 30th of each year. We all know this. It's a scramble. And so what I've been doing in the month prior is running, analyses on what's been submitted, looking for common kind of like entry issue errors, mismatches between what was the code that was entered and let's say a weapon, so firearm, and they put in, somebody entered in a knife, or the vice versa, looking at saying partial day ISS or OSS or sent home early, and then the day was actually, the number of days was actually over 0.5. And so we've been doing those. It's not just that, it's victims. So you have a violent crime, there's no victim attached, things like that. So I've been doing that pre-AOY, and I would like to start doing that quarterly. And for those that would like it, just to make sure throughout the year, instead of having this rush at the end of the year, that this data is I kick out these reports to everyone so they can go in and double check the data entry. So this is my request that data is submitted much more frequently. And it's not just that I'm requesting that. If you go to the next slide, it's in policy that the schools and PSUs run the discipline report so that we can get the data at least every 5 days. And the reason why I say that is there are a number of behaviors and consequences that need to be reported to DPI or to the state within 5 days of occurrence. And I know that a lot of schools are running their reports on a frequent basis. I know that the LEAs, districts and PSUs are as well. However, during EOY, there's still handfuls of schools that have nothing in the system yet. And so there's a scramble to run the reports to make sure that gets put in and then double checking it. I will say that we also do get requests out there that say, hey, has this district reported this? We can't tell them what was reported, but people do ask throughout the year what has been submitted. We don't report on it. We don't say anything about it, but that is a question that does get asked. So it is per policy that we have data that needs to be submitted within 5 days of occurrence. So it's not just, these are the big ones here, the reportable crimes, corporal punishment, ISS, OSS, expulsions, any ALP placements, victims, transfers offered to victims, law enforcement arrests, seclusion and restraints by staff, uses of seclusion and restraints by staff. But if you go on to the next page, you can see that it's not just those. It's not the big ones. It's assault, fighting, gang, robbery, extort. Well, they are kind of big, but communicating threats of assault, property damage. It's a much larger list if you go on to the next one. And then you've got your bullying, harassment, and discrimination. So I just wanted to throw these out there, is that, please just go ahead to make sure we're all in compliance, go ahead every 5 days, run this. And then that way, I can do checks quarterly to make sure, the weapons codes aren't mismatched and things like that, but also that we have record of these instances. And we do know, absolutely know, that these are all subject to change throughout the year as you have due process, as more investigations done on the different incidents. The incident can be deleted. The incident can ultimately change from the way it was entered, but at least it has been submitted. All right, so if you go on to the next one. All right, so I'm gonna paste in the chat some contact surveys for gathering contact information. I have for discipline, I have most of the districts and PSUs I do have a data contact for them, but I don't have it for everyone. And I would really like, especially for dropout and ALP and discipline, to have contacts. So if I ever see anything or there's ever a question, I know who to go to directly. So I'm going to send, put links in the chat for that, and hopefully put it in the FAQ as well, so that these links can get out to other people, so that I can have somebody at least in each one of the PSUs that I can contact about each piece of data, especially during the reporting cycle when I start to write the federal and state level reports that get published. So I'm going to throw those into the chat right now. And again, that's all I have for this. If you have any questions, please ask.
So we did get just a few. So mostly around the statement that they must be reported to NCDPI within 5 days of occurrence. So does that mean they're supposed to be entering the incidents in PowerSchool within 5 days, but also run that discipline report every 5 days in the state.
Yeah, so that's the way that it gets, yes. So that's the way that it gets sent to us.
Perfect. Someone just commenting they'd love to see discipline requested more often. That would give them leverage with principals entering incidents timely. I'd agree with that. And then I see one, is there a way to schedule state reports to automatically run every so many days? And I think that's a really good and interesting question that we can take back to PowerSchool.
That's actually an awesome question. Thanks for asking that one.
Love that. And I think that's pretty much it on discipline. Oh, here's a good one I'll throw out. Why can't discipline be part of the transfer student record process? And I think that's something we've discussed internally. I don't know if we have anything else to say at this point, but it came in.
So that has been discussed. And I mean, I can see the need for a little bit of a blurb on the why and why not of that. So I will take that back to leadership.
Cool. And I believe that is it for now. Keep rolling.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy, for joining. All right, Brandon.
Thank you, Justin. Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm filling in for Stephanie today. She was unable to attend, so I'll provide a quick update on this, and then if you would email me, I will take all questions you have directly to Stephanie. So the AMC report is the advanced math course, and this for reporting. The legislative where it's referencing legislation is 115C 81.36 advanced courses in mathematics. Pardon. And this is why the report was developed in response to this legislation. So we designed a report within PowerSchool for the AMC report to collect the information regarding advanced courses in grades 6 and higher. And the report submission window for this year, 21-22, will be October 15th through October 31st. In order to support districts in advanced courses reporting and process, we will provide an FAQ document, and we'll also host a webinar, which may be pre-recorded with designated office hours afterward for districts to drop in with any questions you have regarding this report. So just wanted to provide a quick update because I heard we were having some questions, and let y'all know that we will be providing an update soon. Webinar and the FAQ soon for this report.
And I think we're able to share that this won't take any work on the coordinator's part. Correct?
No, that is correct. Yeah, I think we're safe for that. It should be very easy.
Okay, so for now, I don't want to take questions on that since she's going to host a separate webinar and offer the opportunity for questions.
Yeah, so we won't have any. There's nothing we need to do at this. Y'all need to do at this point, but I would recommend if you're going to be doing this to attend the webinar and review the frequently asked questions. But feel free to email me, and I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll get any questions you have answered.
Thank you, Brandon. And then when that webinar's set up, when we've got a date, we'll put that in the bulletin.
Yes, thank you, Justin.
All righty. We're getting towards the end, guys. Hang in there with us. Mark, are you still here?
I'm here.
All right.
For the home language survey, I'm just going to kind of show how it works with the L data in PowerSchool and how it impacts different things. We're going to look at the home language and English learners, and specifically the home language field, and then talk about the home language survey process and how it leads to CSPR information and screening tools. So if we can go to the next page, we'll get an overview. Basically, the home language survey is what drives screeners and WAPT tests to determine whether a student is EL, which in turn leads to access testing. And based upon that, we have a lot of things with federal reporting, including CSPR, grant distribution, LIEPs, the EL and immigrant headcounts, the ELPD survey, EL plans, accommodations, and goal setting. So basically, the language survey is the introduction to all of those pieces. So if we go to the next page, and for those of you that want to see where all the laws are, this is that detail. Basically, we deal with federal, we deal with state, and we deal with state board policy. And if you want to look up those specific things later, you can, but the home language survey is kind of the kickoff point. So next page. All right, this is what most people think of for the survey. There is on the WAT EL screener page a home language component that is in the bottom right at the top of the page. This is where the survey field gets filled out for a majority of the students. If they come in from another state, then they would be filled out on the EL data page, but most of them are filled out off of the screening page. The data from that is actually copied over to the home language field on I think it's student other information page, and it's grayed out over there. That data is a one-time push when it is created. If for whatever reason the data gets updated, it doesn't automatically get moved to that new field. Susan Walls, who is the one that updates the field, does it manually whenever needed. All right, next page. All right, here's the process for all of those that want to know the 1,000-foot level instead of the 20,000-foot level. There is a registration or an L training for new stakeholders, and there's a registration link there. So if you know somebody that needs to be there, you can send them there or go there yourself. And one of the things that came up this week as far as the home language is, well, isn't this just Spanish or English? And we have listed the top 10 languages that are used there, and we have over 400 to 500 languages that they can be, and some districts use quite a few of those. So biggest thing from that is if you want more detail, go to that registration link for Friday's webinar. That will be done by Susan, who couldn't make today's meeting. All right, next screen. And basically, all that information gets into the system and will eventually end up on CSPR and specifically specs 45 and FS 141. If you have questions about any of that, you could reach out to Casey Elander. And then my final slide will be the next one. And basically, how the data gets into PowerSchool is the WAPT screeners, and they basically have 30 days to put this information, to test the students and get the information in. And they add the scores into PowerSchool, whether they're current or never. And once they're in PowerSchool, the data can be downloaded into third-party vendors. We just need to make sure it gets into PowerSchool. We've had some issues where the data has been put into some other third-party tool, and then they don't get it entered into PowerSchool, and so we never see it. So that is really, really quick overview of the home language survey.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Do we have any questions? I'm sure there are a few.
Yes, we have a few. So someone says home language is grayed out on their end. How can I enter it? So home language can only be entered as part of an EL record through the EL module. And those EL records can only be entered for students who have been screened through that EL process and have taken one of those state of board.
Yeah, or if they are transferred from another state, they could be entered in on the EL data entry page. So like sixth grader, they wouldn't get a new WAP screening. They would just take the information and put it in on the L page.
Gotcha. And next up, so are we confirming that the home language field should only be updated through the EL screening process, not from a home language survey or any other purpose? And we definitely should not change this field outside of that process for the purpose of ECAT's language translation.
Correct.
Is this manually entered into PowerSchool? Is this a push from another system? So yes, EL records, I believe, are a manual entry into PowerSchool, correct? And then you stick that screener grade in there, and then that can feed out.
They are manual entry. They can put in the screener scores if they have a list of them via bulk import, but only the WAPTs work, not the screeners themselves. So the K1 and K2 can be bulk imported, which is when most of these tests are done.
All right. Let's see. Can we provide info to create an EL record? I will get them the link to our EL user guide, which was updated within the last year. And I see we have Tracy Tillis from the ECATS team has requested unmute, so I can give her an unmute if she'd like to add anything.
Yes, for the ECATS question that came up earlier, I can clarify that we are having some internal meetings. We use the home language because that was the authoritative source when we were working with our ECATS vendor on providing the translation functionality. So we will provide you with additional information once we have some internal meetings. The other thing that I can tell you is that Mark was showing all of the various languages in North Carolina. For ECATS, we are going by the ASTM International Translation List right now. So Spanish was just rolled out. Our vendor is working on Chinese, French, Dutch, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, and Russian based on that ASTM list. That does not mean that that will be the only languages that we translate to, but that is for this wave, and we will be taking considerations for other languages. We do know that there are some larger populations within North Carolina that we need to address language-wise, but that will be sort of a phase 3 approach. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tracy. And I've got just one more. If a student's home language is showing up incorrectly, how do we change it? And I believe you would need to work with your EL coordinator to update that value on the EL record. Is that correct?
It would, yeah. The EL coordinator would go to Susan. So
gotcha.
Susan Walls would be the one that actually updates it with communication from the EL coordinator.
Perfect. All right, and I believe that is it on this piece. Thank you, everybody.
Sweet. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
All right. So real quick, I'll let Russell add to this if he wants to, but we are currently testing the next version, which is 20.11.4 that we plan to move to. This is an upgrade that you won't even notice it, like you won't notice any changes at all. However, it is required. We've got to go ahead and upgrade before we start having discussions about the next Oracle upgrade. So this has to happen before we can upgrade Oracle. Right now, we're looking to do this over the October maintenance weekend. But like I said, it's still being tested. So once we get further out, we'll definitely communicate that. Russell, do you want to share or add anything?
I really don't have anything to share about the upgrade, but I did want to make one comment because I saw one of the questions that John answered concerning the discipline incidents and the loading error. That loading issue only occurs on the student page. In other words, if you choose a student, then go to administration incidents, you were having it where the loading would continue forever and never stop. That should have been fixed by now. A push was put in for a fix last night, and I've done a few little checks, and that seems to be taken care of. I would still say that you should put your instance in, your initial instance in on the start page. And then if you want to look at instant information on the student, do that from the student page. But that loading issue should be fixed now.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, the last thing I have, unfortunately, we have decided for obvious reasons not to host the CIS Fall Conference that we had discussed earlier in the summer. Just because of everything going on, we didn't know if we could safely pull everybody together. So right now, we're still going to have one, and we're going to plan that. We don't want to do it virtually either because I don't believe it'll be well attended. So we're looking to bump this out to spring 2022. I know earlier we shared that this conference would be held November 8th through 10th, but right now it's postponed to spring. Still, though, if you have ideas for sessions you'd like to see, or if you'd like to present yourself, is the link still hot, John? Is it still available to submit proposals?
Yes, the proposal form should still be up, and I can find that link real quick if we need it.
All right. So, again, there's a feedback link at the top. I know we went a little bit over, but I hope you appreciated and found this setup beneficial. I know we brought in a lot of guests, but I tried to cover items that you guys have been asking for, as well as upcoming urgent reports that we have coming up due before our next meetup. So definitely leave feedback. Let us know how you felt about today or what you want to see in the future. But we will hang out and continue taking questions if we have any. And for those that want to drop, I appreciate you joining. We will get this recording out along with an FAQ list. We'll work on putting that together, especially the RTA communication. So
awesome. We do have a few questions. Do you want to go through those, or?
We can. If they're related to the business owner presentations, we might have to hold off on those if they've dropped.
Gotcha. I think we still have Russell, right? Yes. So we have one about the upgrade. Do we know, does 2011.4, is that the version that gets rid of the option to turn off the new experience?
No, 20.11.4 does not get rid of that option. It is not until a later version that that's done.
Cool. Cool. That knocks out a lot of these, honestly. Someone asking about training as a new coordinator. I would say shoot us an email so we can get you some resources to get you started. Let's see. We've got a comment about EL. We have students who have never been EL but somehow have data in that home language field. They've changed those in those cases using Data Export Manager. Would that be the correct way to handle these, or a correct way to handle these?
I would send that data to Susan so we can investigate why there's data there. Because if there's data there, there's something going on. You know, we just want to see if there's something else that could be going on. But it might be just that would be the way. But we just want to make sure that there's nothing else going on.
Let's see. We have a question on social studies standards spreadsheet. That is in progress, but there is some pending legislation around that. So no updates to share at the moment. And we've got one about if there's any interest of creating a list that shows how each PSU receives records requests. And I think that's something we can probably discuss with a few of you. I think that's about it, unless anyone else has anything else. I see we have one asking about how they can verify their attendance reports for summer learning were received through the secure shell. But you'll have to contact the Office of Learning, Recovery, and Acceleration to ask about that. We are not sure about that one here in home base land.
Is that it?
That is all I see for now.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining and have a great afternoon.